Loulies, stand-up comedian, also known as the Big 44. This is Thank God for Jury Duty. What have I been up to lately? I've been on the road a little bit. I just recently did several weeks down south, Birmingham, Alabama, the Star Dome, which is actually like one of the top 5 clubs in the nation. Very large venue. Folks like Steve Harvey, Ricky Smiley. This is a legendary venue that people like Kevin Hart, when they were out on the road, were coming through. A very, very, very amazing venue. Literally seats like over 400 some people on a Tuesday night, can be packed. Tuesday, Wednesdays packed. Great. So I haven't been down there in 2 years. I just went back. I featured with the very funny Julie Scoggins, who was actually one of my mentors in stand-up comedy. I also, on the way back up, did several days in Atlanta, a community that I felt very welcome in. In 3 days, I was on stage like 6 times, and it's a lot of networking. That is a place where I eventually would like to move to. I'm not really set on much of it. That's what I've been doing a lot lately also, is trying to map out my next several years. A lot of comics want to go to LA, New York. I personally see something in Atlanta that's about to explode. I mean, it's already exploding. It's like the Hollywood East Coast. So here lately, that's what I've been doing a lot of, is just finding out the next step. I've done everything I could in my hometown, Hampton Roads area. So now I've been, getting out on the road more, and just like I said, just trying to map out the next couple of years of my career. Oh, so I'm here in Richmond at the Richmond Funny Bone. Tonight I just closed out the Clash of the Comics. That was very fun. But the real reason I'm here is because tomorrow night, Thursday, October 18th, 2018, we're doing the Comedy Smackdown 10. The Comedy Smackdown is a roast battle. It's a wrestling-themed roast battle. 12 comics are going after $500 cash, courtesy of the Stephen L. Washington Law Firm, who is an attorney out of the Hampton Roads area, but does all over Virginia. He's got a lot of viral videos out there. Check him out now at I Know Stephen L. His videos, his marketing is amazing. He really connects with the community and his culture. So he puts up that money for the comics to fight over. And what they're also fighting over is the Sean Malick Comedy Smackdown Championship belt. Sean Malick was a up-and-coming comic out of the Hampton Roads area that all the comics loved. He was just a comics comic, and he was really about just in the process of blazing a trail in this business. He opened for people like Doug Stanhope, and his comedic style was very edgy, and he did edgy funny. So basically, the very first Smackdown, when I put this show together, he was also a wrestling fan, old school wrestling fan. He was one of the first people I thought of to book for this show. He won the very first show. He won the very first championship for the Smackdown 1. Several months after that, he lost his life. He gave in to the effects of PTSD. He did 30 months or more in Iraq, Air Force security. If you know what Air Force security is, those are the guys on the ground on the battlefield. Everybody thinks Air Force is in the airplanes in the sky. No, he been through a lot, and he held a lot of it in. None of us on the local comedy scene knew what was going on with him. He took his life. So his brother, Kerry Malick, started the nonprofit Sloth, which stands for Sean's Last Opportunity to Help. So in his memory, every Smackdown after that, we named the championship the Sean Malick Comedy Smackdown Championship belt. It's a real nice pro wrestling quality belt. Gold, it's got some weight to it. It's got the sloth on the front. He used to, and another real place Sloth came from, he used to do a very funny bit about sloths. So that's kind of like how his brother also came up with the acronym for Sean's Last Opportunity to Help. So 12 comics in his honor, cut each other's heads off, nothing politically correct. Roast battle. We also do a little tag team championship. We have the Sloth Tag Team Championships. Up here, we have Licking Hole Creek Brewery, which is an awesome brewery. I'm a big fan of craft brew, big fan of theirs. So I was ecstatic when they wanted to immediately chip in to help the sponsor. They're giving out some gift certificates to the winner of that tag team round. So that's a little bit of the Comedy Smackdown 10. Comedy Smackdown 11 is going to be at its home club, December 19th, 2018. That's coming up very soon. We always do very well in Virginia Beach. We always raise a lot of money for the cause. People really come out to support it because it was born there, and it's just really taken off down there in the Hampton Roads area. So we're up in Richmond doing the 10th Comedy Smackdown. Why did I start doing stand-up comedy? It was something I kind of always want to do all my life. I know he's not popular to talk about right now, but I'm just going to keep it real. Me growing up in the 80s, I saw my very first memory of stand-up comedy was my family sitting around watching Bill Cosby special, Bill Cosby himself. I was sitting on the floor watching the television, seeing the reaction that my family was giving this guy on TV telling jokes, and I was just like, man, I'd love to do that one day. That's what I want to do. I want to be able to, just bring people laughter. I didn't even realize what a global scale what he was doing. Someone of that magnitude, someone that big in the business. I didn't understand the whole concept of cable TV back then, of all the the arenas he was going to. I was only literally 4 or 5 years old. So growing up, I started to get into Chris Rock. I started to get into Chris Rock, Eddie Murphy, of course. Just so many others coming up in the 80s. Oh my God, I can't even remember Ford Fairlane. Andrew Dice Clay. Andrew Dice Clay was one of my favorites too. Then I was also big into Saturday Night Live in the late 80s, early 90s. So stand-up was something I've always wanted to do. It was just always that self-doubt of getting up on stage and stage fright that put a lot of fear in me. But I always knew I could do it. Throughout my 20s, I've always battled depression, but I didn't really take care of myself in my 20s. I was into alcohol and a lot of stuff, and of course that just keeps you in your depression. But in my 20s, I actually found a very lucrative career in the mortgage business. I was during the boom, the housing boom. I was making 6 digits a year, in my late 20s. Not even 30 years old. Had a house on a lake, nice car. But then I had fake friends. I lived on a quota. Couldn't go on a vacation without my phone ringing off. I was miserable. The parties, the money, the material stuff, I was not happy. The market turned in 2007, 2008, lost everything, and I went into bill collecting. I was very miserable in bill collecting because it was so negative. I was literally yelling at people all day. So I said to myself at 30 years old, I was like, I got to do this now. If there's ever a time I'm going to try this, it's now. So I went out to open mic, my very first open mic. The first night I went out to open mic, I thought I was going to do it, but I chickened out. I went to Cosby's Comedy Club. Back then, they only had one open mic, and that was the first Thursday of the month. So I went out there. I was going to do it, but I chickened out and didn't sign up. I was like, okay, I'm going to just watch this first, and then next month I'll come back. So this month I came back. I did it. Out of 32 comics, they put me number 32. So I literally had to sit there for hours with my nerves eat me to death. And I was just, throwing back shots because I just had to calm my nerves. I get up on stage, I blank. I was studying. I literally had my material written down on a Word document that I was memorizing for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I completely blanked. So I just made some off the cuff random joke. I can't remember what it was. I got that first laughter, the first feeling of laughter, and then everything came back to me. And then, I don't even like to stay at my stage. I've been doing this almost 10 years now. I don't even like to stay at my stage of my career where I'm at as a house MC, middle act, off-night headliner. I don't like to use the word killing it, but that night I felt like I killed it, my very first night on stage. So I woke up the next day, felt totally reborn, and I knew that it was the greatest feeling in the world that next day I woke up. And I drank so much after that show, and I just specifically remember that next day I didn't even have no kind of hangover. It was like the best feeling, waking up knowing you just confirmed last night that this is who you, and this is what you can do, and this is what you can do the rest of your life. So ever since then, that's been that. I love this business for for its beauty and its all its flaws. So I've been nonstop ever since. How would I describe this type of stand-up I perform? I teach a comedy school at Virginia Beach Funny Bone. I've been teaching there for 6 years. This is something I tell my students that, there's a term in the industry called finding your voice. I'm just now starting to scratch the surface. And like I said, I've almost been doing this 10 years. I kind of know my style, but I feel like it could be refined in something more broader. As of right now, I appeal more to urban and black crowds. But when I do the blue collar or white crowds, or the more kind of like hipster, leftist type audience, I know I'll never connect with them. So that's not my style. The intellectual, just constantly political, venomous type comedy. That's not my style, and I don't care what your politics are. I mean, I'm not too political. I do talk a little bit about politics, but I don't want to be a political comic. So I would say mine's kind of like upbeat. I'm always challenging myself to write more intelligent material. So as of right now, that is my style. It's more of an urban style. But when I get in front of an audience and I don't make that connection, say for example, if it's an all-white upper class crowd, I have issues connecting with those people as well. I don't walk away saying, "Oh, F that crowd," that they're just stupid, or they don't get me, so that's their problem. I walk away saying, how can I connect to them next time? So right now my style's still a work in progress. I want to be that comic that could perform for everybody, for a mixed crowd, all black crowd, all white crowd, whatever. I want to be somebody that gets across to everyone. So I would say that is my style. It's a work in progress. What I'd be doing if I wasn't doing stand-up? I would probably be in sales still, being miserable. I had a good gift at sales. When I got out of high school, okay, I guess I could say this now because it's kind of a statute of limitations maybe. After high school, my first career was selling weed. So I actually, and back then, when I got out of high school, when I was in high school, my later high school years, I was smoking weed to fit in. It really wasn't my thing, but I was doing it just to fit in. When I started selling it, I stopped smoking it because I wanted to make more money with it. So I gave a better product. I gave more of that product. So I kind of always had a natural ability of sales. So once I gave that up and knew that, hey, there's no old drug dealers, you can't do this forever, I went into, this is in the early 2000s, I went into telemarketing. And that's before telemarketing really started getting on people's nerves. But I was great at it. I was making really good money at it. I was good at selling. From there, I went into, that's how I got into the mortgage business. I was such a great telemarketer. I was setting up leads and clienteles for these loan officers to close these deals. But they said, hey, you're so good at what you do on the phone, you should be doing actually closing these deals yourself. So got into mortgages and stuff like that. But I've always had a really good gift of selling. Also, I teach comedy. I feel like if I was educated in another area or profession, I feel like I'd also probably be teaching or public speaking. Public speaking is something that I eventually would like to mix in with my career. So that's probably what I would be.
So are you really a bill collector then?
Was I really a bill collector? I was a bill collector, but I'm not. Okay, yeah, I was good at it, but I didn't enjoy it. So that's a career I would never go back to. Like if I totally just said tomorrow, which don't ever see this happening, but if I said, okay, I'm just gonna quit stand up, I'll never go back to bill collecting again. So, plus it's been like 9 or 10 years since I've been bill collecting, so the laws have changed since then, so I can't be as mean as I used to be, as mean as they used to allow me to be. So no, I would never go back to that. What is something people would be surprised to know about me? I'm a nerd, and not in a nerd where I'm trying to be like one of the cool nerds. I listen to a lot of late night talk show, coast to coast AM Art Bell, R.I.P. I listen to a lot of radio, talk radio, and not the conservative talk radio. I don't watch TV much. A lot of people watch TV. There are a couple shows that I do like. There's not many. I like listening to radio. I have the old Orson Welles War of Worlds on record. I like listening to old records, old recordings, classic. When I go to sleep at night, I have on my XM satellite app, and I have Radio Classics on, like the old Sherlock Holmes, stuff like that. Of course, I am a nerd in the sense of, I do like all the superhero movies, comic books, video games, all that. But this is one thing I've never really told anybody public. I listen to a lot of the old radio classics. I love just listening to stuff like that, the old plays, because before television, that's all people had. Families sat around, listened to radio or a record player. Those were movies before movies were records. And my uncle in Brooklyn, my great uncle in Brooklyn, had stacks of these records. So when he passed away, I inherited. Like a lot of people my family were fighting over certain things over the estate. I was like, give me those records. Those old ones that had even like old Yankees baseball games on them. He worked for the Yankees organization. I would listen to an old Yankees game. I would listen, even though I don't really like baseball. I just like listening to storytelling in the audio form, more so than the visual. So that's one thing I've never really, probably the first time I've ever really publicly told anybody that.
So you collect anything?
Do I collect things? Right now, I'm actually gotten into collecting bourbons. It's like a really hot market right now, but it's a little collecting thing I like to do. And I don't always drink them all, so it's just like a little collecting thing. But I used to collect football cards, stuff like that. There's nothing really that I really hoard on to. I don't really collect those records as much anymore because, whatever you need to want to listen to, it's online. So I guess if there's one thing I would say nowadays I like to collect is knowledge. I like to collect knowledge via the mistakes I've made. I don't no longer look at mistakes as failure. I look at them as really a stepping stone to success. So, and no matter what that is, I'm not looking for fame, nothing like that. I just want to be happy, make a decent income. But I just want to, collect knowledge to learn, not just even be successful, but just to evolve as a better person. So I guess if I had to say I collect anything now, it's knowledge. I wasn't very good in high school. I graduated high school, but more what I like a C-ish average. But back then I was forced to learn something. As I've become older, I've sought out knowledge because it wasn't forced on me. It's something I wanted to go after. So I guess if I say I collect anything, it's just knowledge in all forms. I don't care what anybody says. My favorite television, I guess, if I watch any, is Monday Night Raw, WWE Smackdown, wrestling, pro wrestling. I grew up as a couch potato. You know what I mean? I used to watch all the sitcoms. But like I said, now the older I get, the more I'm into more audio form of entertainment. But when I do watch TV, I keep up with The Walking Dead. That's pretty much maybe one of the only real episodic shows I watch other than wrestling or whatever. Even like I even find myself now sports. I like football and NBA, but with sports I even like listening to it on the radio or through a phone app. I like listening more than watching. So really, if there's really only one show that I really watch that's not wrestling, and that's The Walking Dead. Do I change my performance based on the venue I'm at or the location I'm at? Okay, so yes, when I'm up northeast, I would be dirtier. It's more accepted up there. But once you go below the Bible Belt, you gotta clean it up a little bit. Can't use GD, drop too many F-bombs. It's not as especially saying that word GD. I had a habit of saying it, and I'm trying to totally eliminate it from my vocabulary. Because when you go down south and perform, sometimes your set can just be going amazing, and you say that word, and it's like hitting a speed bump. They totally cut you off after that because they get so offended. when I'm in front of an all-white crowd, I do have the type of material that appeals more to them. When I'm in front of an all-black crowd, I step my energy up a little bit more. And it also depends on what position I'm on the show. I love hosting. I don't want to be stuck hosting all my life, but it's like when I'm not hosting, I'm nervous inside because I always want control of the show. And I feel like I'm one of the better MCs in my area. I tell people all the time, I might not be the funniest comic, but I'm the best MC that I know in my area because I do it textbook. So if I'm performing on a show where I'm MCing, my set is cleaner. I'm not trying to step on anyone's material behind me, so I adjust my jokes for that. I don't do much crowd work anywhere I go. So when I'm a middle act, I'll step up the language a little bit more. When I'm a headliner, I still sometimes revert back to being clean though, because I still, if I'm gonna drop an F-bomb, it's gonna be part of a joke. I don't want it to be a filler just to get a cheap reaction. So yes, in my act, everything adjusts based on the demographic that I'm performing in front of, as well as my position in the show. Yes, when I first started doing comedy was back in 2009. In the Hampton Roads area, like I said, all you had was Kazi's open mic the first Thursday of every month. Other than that, there was a place out in the Ghent section of Norfolk called the New Belmont. That was every other Sunday. That was it. I knew that for me to get better, I had to be on stage. So I went out and under the guidance of another guy that was experienced at opening clubs, I got in, started working these rooms, booking these rooms, emceeing them, producing them. Then I started, at one time I had like 5 room shows going a week, all over Hampton Roads and up to Williamsburg, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Suffolk, Portsmouth, everywhere. Because I just needed that stage time. I needed to learn things. I needed to make those mistakes to get better. So yes, I did start those. I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes, but the key thing is I always listened to the veterans above me. When I did something wrong and I got my ass chewed out, I listened. I didn't say, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about, old guy. You're not on Comedy Central, so who are you?" I listened. I listened, especially to the ones that didn't make it or become big or famous, because they're the ones you want to learn from. They're the ones that made the mistakes. You want to learn, hey, what can I not do that he did that does. I feel like you can gain way more knowledge off of someone that didn't make it famous, in my opinion, because making it famous has a lot to do with luck. So especially you can learn a lot off of someone that's out there barely making it by, been doing comedy 20, 30 years, and they still enjoy it and still love it. That's who I want to learn from. So when I made mistakes running these rooms, or if I offended anyone, or if I did something stupid business-wise, I always learned from it. And that's what made me better. So some comics go out and open rooms and continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. I didn't do that. So now over the first now the shows that I do produce, they are much. I'm more pickier of the venue. I go in, I run it much more professionally, almost like a club. Whether it's the Spirit of Norfolk cruise ship or a ballroom out in Franklin, Virginia, whatever. I'm much more picky about the rooms I take on, and I make sure they're done right. So, but yes, that did help me younger in my career. When I first started, I did start a bunch of rooms, and then I cut my teeth, and I'm more refined because of that.
Comedy school or anything? Or you can talk about me as a student.
Oh, Sarah. Okay, so how was Sarah Pip Rose as a student? Is that the question?
Sure.
Okay, so Sarah is, when I first saw Sarah, I was like, she was so super shy and in a shell. I was like, okay, so I am going to go into my love of teaching. Okay, this is one of the reasons I love teaching. When I see someone come in so reserved, and I look at someone that, I used to pass judgment. Now, like I said, I've been teaching for 6 years. I used to do classes 3 times a year. Now I do them 4 times a year. I've taught hundreds of students. I used to be to where, like, when someone first got on the stage the first time, whether they were in a shell or they just weren't funny, I would say to myself, oh God, like, this isn't for you, just stop. That's what I used to do. But the more and more classes I taught, I found that sometimes the ones that were most reserved and the ones that I assumed wasn't as talented, they found something where they turned a corner. And sometimes these students end up being the best ones by the end of the class. Or sometimes they're still, like, by the end of the class, they're still very reserved, or it may seem less talented as everyone else, but if this is something they really want and they continue to do it year after year after year, sometimes they become some of the best. And I don't care if he sees this. I tell my classes all the time. I use one of my best friends in comedy, Derek Williams, as an example. Derek wasn't a student of mine, of course. He started about 6 months after I started doing comedy. For at least 2 years, he was the comic. He was like the blunt of the joke of the Hampton Roads comedy community. Literally, MCs would say things like, when they're bringing up, okay, ladies and gentlemen, if there's ever a time you want to smoke a cigarette or go to the bathroom, this is your time. You're not going to miss nothing. Like, he was literally a laughing stock of the Hampton Roads community. But he wanted it so bad, he was out there getting on stage just about every night of the week. Every microphone he could get on. Now he's one of the best comics in the area, in the Hampton Roads area. So I tell my students now, no matter where you finish at in the class, I just want you to take some of the things that I teach you and apply them to your everyday life. So regardless if they go on to continue to do comedy, if it helps them in their work, in their personal relationships, whatever, then that's great. In Sarah Pip Rose's case, she still could, I believe this was 3 years ago to the class, 2-3 years ago?
It'll be 4, actually.
4,
Actually,
okay.
Right now, because it was October.
Sarah Pip
graduated
Rose,
in December.
Sarah Pip Rose never gave up. She's getting better and better every time I see her. She's getting more confident every time I see her. I could tell back when she was doing a class with her, that her writing was there. It's an intelligent form of writing. Maybe a form of writing some people would say is awkward or shy or a little bit nerdy, but I mean, there's a market for that. You know what I mean? There's people that can connect to that, you know? So every time I see Sarah Pip Rose, she's getting better and better. And like I said, in comedy, it's not a race, okay? People like Jerry Seinfeld were on the road 15 to 20 years before they got their big break. Okay, so comedy's not an overnight success. You know, I've seen people start out comedy red hot and you thought they were going to be the next star, fizzle out within 3 years and never do comedy again. And you're like, wow, I thought they were going to make it. Then you see people that start and they're so shy and reserved, and you're like, nah, they can never do this for real. But as long as you just keep at it and it's something you want and you're getting better and better over time, that is success. You are heading in the right direction. That's where Sarah Pip Rose is. She is heading in the right direction about what she's doing, and she was a very good student. And it's another thing about being a great student. I've taught people that paid money to take my class and don't listen to the things I teach them because, you know, maybe because they didn't like what I had to say, or they think they know better. But if you knew better, why did you even pay for a class in the first place? Sarah Pip Rose actually applies a lot of the things, not just from me, but from other comics, the advice she gives her. So to have a very teachable person like that it makes what I do a lot of fun. Do I have a best and worst show? My best show, and this is why I believe there's a thing called the film gods, or the recording gods, or whatever, camera gods. My very best set ever was at the Charlotte Comedy Zone when I was featuring for John Witherspoon. Now, I've had a lot of really great sets, but this one, it was just literally packed, 400 some people. From my very first word to my last word was the most perfect set ever. And I remember setting up my camera right before I went on stage, and I hit record, and it said, it looked like it was recording. I come back and to my camera, and it says, memory disk cover not closed. So the whole thing didn't record. But it was the most perfect set that I've ever had, and I've had a lot of good ones. My worst that I have to say was actually I got booked by the Virginia Beach Funny Bone to do a nudist colony out in Ivor, Virginia. And the reason I say it's worst is I didn't really perform that bad, but it was just this place. Literally out in the middle of nowhere in Ivor, Virginia. You go through this gated community. Me and a fellow comic of mine that I came up with, Jim Seward, we go to the welcoming center because you got to check in and all that stuff before they take you to where the performance hall was. We're just sitting there, and it's a family nudist resort. So we're looking at a painted picture of a summertime scene around a pool, and everyone's naked, including the kids. So it totally creeped me out. We walk into this place where we're performing at, like 150 naked rednecks. And it was just like the most uncomfortable thing. But hey, I know that's their lifestyle. I wasn't going to judge. But I thought I was only going to do about 20 minutes. But they say, oh, no, it's just me and him show up. And they say, okay, oh, Jim Stewart, you're doing 20 minutes. Tim Loulies, you're the headliner. You're doing 50. I said, wow, okay. So I had to just go up there and do my comedy. My comedy wasn't bad, but I did do crowd work in that situation. I tried to keep just eye contact. It was just weird. Listen, like, hey, that's their lifestyle, whatever. But, and I'm a very open-minded person. But seeing a video arcade and a playroom right behind the stage where you're thinking, okay, this is a family, it totally creeped me out. So it was definitely a memory. And also, I will say this, it wasn't my worst shows, but it was the worst room I've ever ran. It was a series of shows. But the worst room I've ever ran was this place called Tiki out in Pungo, Virginia. The owner really wanted it to work. The show went on 8 months, way too long. It should have ended the very first month. But the owner really wanted to work. The staff hated the comedy. First of all, it was in a rich white neighborhood around Pungo, Virginia. So that's not really that's really not the most conducive to comedy, because why do you need a laugh when your life's so great, when you got a mansion and a $80,000 car? Okay, so that wasn't an ideal crowd. During the summertime, it was red hot because when the tourists were in the Virginia Beach area, around that resort area, they were awesome crowds because they came from all over the country and they appreciated comedy. The staff hated us. The staff would sabotage the shows. The staff, literally, there was a leak in the ceiling, so they made the stage right below the leak. Like, comics were performing in front of a bucket, dripping. Airplanes came over. It was around Oceana Air Force Base, so right in your punchlines, like we called it the comedy Vietnam, because literally airplanes, like these jet fighters, would fly right over right when you're about to hit a punchline. Also, the bartenders didn't want no one sitting in front of the stage. They wanted them sitting at the bar. Because they wanted more tips instead of the wait staff. So they would sabotage us like right in the middle of a joke. They would hit a daiquiri maker when there's no daiquiri mix in it, just to grind ice, just to mess us up. They put reserve signs in front of the stage. Like, oh, we got a crowd coming tonight? Like, no, we just don't want people over there sitting near you. So it's hard to kind of communicate. And then, you got these rich jerks that think they're funnier than you, but they want to sit in the back of the room and yell stuff. So it was a place that I constantly dealt with hecklers. The staff hated us when the comics would show up. It was just, but a lot of those comics that went through that are some of the best in the Hampton Roads area, because, like I said, you learn way more on a bad night of comedy than you do a good night of comedy.
Like, any more advice? Do
I have any more advice? I guess enjoy this. If you do stand-up comedy, enjoy it. Because if you're chasing fame and you're chasing money, you're going to be miserable. If you don't love this, and the fortune and fame doesn't come to you quick enough, you're not going to be doing this anymore. The people that have been doing this for continuously, not taking breaks for 15, 20 years, they do it because they love it. They don't do it for the money and the fame. Now, these famous people in Hollywood or whatever, or these comedians that do sell out arenas and stuff, of course, they love the fame. I mean, they enjoy the fame, they enjoy the money, but they love this, number one. So, only time will tell how much you love stand-up comedy, but keep that in mind. It's not a race. Don't, and I learned this because, there's jealousy and envy when you see some of your peers go faster than you in their careers or whatever, or they get better opportunities. We're all, it's human nature. You get jealous. But what I've also tried to focus on is to not, and just know your lane and stay in it and go hard in it. I don't have just a solo career. I work a lot on the business side. I teach, I produce shows, I book shows, all that stuff. That's me. If I just focused on me, maybe my career may be a lot further. But just worry about yourself. Don't base your success on someone else's success. Or don't feel like you're a failure because someone else is a success. Just worry about you. Don't worry about other people, and do it because you love it, not because you're chasing some dream of stardom or money. Do comedy because you love it. Listen, I just want to do what I want to love. Of course, I'd love to be in a movie one day. I'd love to have my own talk show maybe one day, actually a radio show. I'd love to host a late night show. I'd like to there's so many things that, I would like to accomplish, but in the end, I just want to accomplish happiness. I want to be able to, if I can make 6 digits a year doing what I love doing, and whether that's teaching or doing comedy on the road or whatever. I just want to have a comfortable living and do what I want to do for the rest of my life, and that's stand-up comedy. You can find me on Instagram at Big44Comedy. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/thebig44. That's my fan page. I really don't do much on that anymore. You can find me on Facebook, my personal page, which is facebook.com/Big44, or Tim Loulies, Loulies. So I don't know. I probably ain't going to add you, but that's my personal page. Twitter at thebig44. So that's pretty much it.
Anything else you want to add?
Oh, I also have, admin several other pages at Funny Bone Comedy School on Instagram, at Comedy Smackdown on Instagram as well.
Anything else?
No?
Okay.
Sarah Piprose, thank you for having me. One of my favorite students ever.
Thanks.
Yeah.